keep recording. Yes. Hola, Cristina. How's it going? We've got some repeat attenders.
Oh, Christine, thank you.
Yay. I know, super, super nice. We've got a couple comments in the chat, and Nelva and Esther, amazing, amazing. So if you could follow their lead, we welcome you obviously to tonight's webinar. And so if you could tell us where you find yourself. We are collecting zero data from this. We just find it interesting. And it's kind of fun to watch you guys connect, like, hey, wait, I'm in New York. Where are you? Oh, I'm in Connecticut, you know, whatever. So, so that's really fun. So like, if you're a teacher, what you're teaching, or just where you find yourself, what your affiliation with languages could be, you know, all that information. My name is Meredith White. I teach Spanish just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in Gwinnett County. And I teach Spanish 1 and 2 this year. Or just always, those are my favorites, but let's keep that going, by the way. You know, and you get to teach what you want. Like, please don't ever change. And we have been hybrid this year for the entire year. So we've had roomies and zoomies all year. That's why Claudia and I were laughing about the cameras before I mean, we're always laughing about the cameras, but just what a year. We have 8 more weeks, 8 more Mondays, and we're doing the best we can here. So I'm excited. Claudia is just south of me, and she's going to introduce herself in a second, but brace yourself, because she's one of the hardest working, just funniest, most like wholehearted people that I know. So I actually am lucky. I get to spend 2 nights with her. Claudia, we timed this perfectly, by the way, because we didn't know that this was going to be the schedule. And she's doing Skolt comedy with me and 2 others tomorrow night at the Skolt conference at the opening, right after the opening session. So we get 2 nights together. And her camera now looks like, oh, you're hooking up the other one. That's right. I forgot you were going to change cameras. So anyway, all of a sudden it was like a mushroom or something funny. It was like a pattern. So anyway, lucky me, I get to hang out with Claudia twice, or yeah, definitely lucky me, but she's going to be sick of me. Also, I don't mind. I'm here for it. And then, again, I'm going to say it for the 17th time. All of you repeat attenders, I hope you know that we are all bonded now. So you're not getting rid of me. In my mind, I'm literally like, I'm hanging out with my friends. Like, we're about halfway through this series. Might be a problem at this point, because I'm just like looking forward to all of you. So I hope that's not weird. And
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Beautiful.
Okay, so let's see what happened with my camera.
I was saying it's the opposite of students. Like, how you can like see them sometimes, but you can't hear, or they're like, sorry, everything's broken. Lies.
Oh wow, what happened with my camera? I think I'm gonna just take this camera.
No worries. We're easy. Okay, I'm gonna scroll up a little bit here. Actually, I'm gonna pause the recording.
I am very, very excited. I am Claudia Elliott. I am from Bogota, Colombia, and I have been living here since, oh my gosh, since I decided to get married. without knowing my husband too well, you know, like those decisions, you know, I think those are the best decisions, right? I met my husband in a wedding in Colombia, and I just kind of like found him so cute, like so cute. And I was a lawyer. I was practicing law. I was in a law firm. I just finished my master's here in the States. I went to American University to get my master's degree in international business law. And I was working in my law firm. And my mom, I was living by myself after, you know, I had to tell my mom, it's time. I'm a lawyer. It's time. And she didn't talk to me for 3 months because I left my house. You know, right. And I was 27. I was 27 years old. And I finally got my apartment. And then my mom said, like, we have this wedding and you have to come. And like, I'm too tired. I have meetings. I cannot go, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you need to come. I went and I met my husband. Can you imagine that? Okay. And I thought he was so cute. And he thought that I was cute. It's just like a miracle, like a miracle.
Miracle.
We married. We saw each other 5 times.
No.
And I married him because I thought, I'm very smart, Meredith. I thought it was easier to find a job than to find a husband.
Oh, maybe.
Do you think?
Yeah, I feel like you're not. maybe.
So I married him and I moved here. So isn't that crazy? And I moved, and my mom is a teacher, and my dad is a lawyer.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm a perfect child. I'm the perfect child. I practiced law for 10 years, made my dad super proud. And
then,
now I'm a teacher, making my mom very proud.
of course. Well, you got to split it, you know, a little bit. They
I know, right?
You can't, one parent can't totally favor you. You're like, oh, I'll help you out. Okay, fine. See?
I know. So
funny.
that's my story. I came to United States and now I'm teaching Spanish right south Meredith. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. You know, in Florida, we never close, right? Like we're like kind of like, you know, this type of. So I started back in August, like full, face-to-face,
Yep.
2 classes, 3 classes hybrid, where I have half of my students are with me and half of my students are online, and 2 virtual classes. I teach Spanish 1, Spanish 3 IB, and AP Spanish.
So you only have like, what, 17 preps? No problem.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I have 70 preps and I have 2 children, 2 kids, and they're 12 and 14, and then my parents live with me. So, you know, I'm going to go directly to heaven when I die.
All right.
I'm done.
I'm in, free pass. That's so funny.
Very, Mirna has the same story as me, a lawyer from Mexico and a teacher in the United States. Yeah.
Yes, Mirna.
I mean, you know, sometimes when you make decisions, you think that your decisions are going to be for the rest of your life, but really they're not. Like, right? Like we really are making decisions like every day. Because our life is going to change so dramatically anytime. I mean, imagine a year and 3 weeks ago, who would have imagined that we would be in this situation?
I mean, right. It's been a year.
It's been a year. It's been quite a year. And I am very excited about our topic, Meredith, because I want to talk about accents and identity. And I think that is really close to my heart because I live it every single day. So, and I think we all live it because we are all language teachers. So I think it's something that we don't talk enough about it. And I just wanted to, I mean, I know that I already tell you this, but this is what I do. I am very passionate. Like I love what I do. I love to connect with my students. I love to learn more about what I do, especially because I didn't go to college to be a language teacher, right? I went to college to be a lawyer. So I've been in a journey to really equip myself with information and knowledge so I can make intentional decisions in my class. So kind of like that has been my philosophy. Like I want to know, so I'm not like guessing in my class, and I don't want the textbook to dictate what I do. So I want to have the information so I can make intentional decisions. And then I have learned the importance of my connecting with my students. And that's what is my passion. Like really, those 2 things are my passion. If you want to connect with me, you can find me in my Facebook group, Growing with CI. And then I'm in Twitter and Instagram in Claudia M. Elliott. And, you know, my blog is there. I write every year or so, but it's there. It's moving. One day I'm going to get to do that. But, you know, okay. So I wanted to talk to you about this because I think when we start with what is educate, and you start looking at the definitions, you start seeing something. It's to provide schooling for, to train by formal instructions. And look at this, to develop mentally, morally, and aesthetically, or however you say that, especially by instruction, to provide with information, look at this, to pursue or condition, to feel, believe, or act in a desired way. That is the definition that the dictionary brings. And I think what happened is that this leads to a deficit model approach to education. And I think that's a big problem because I think as educators, we feel like we have the knowledge, the skills, and the expertise. And then we have the learners, and the learners need to learn from us. And then we give and learners receive. I think that's how I did it when I was in school. I don't think my teachers knew my name. I really didn't. I mean, I really don't. I went to school. I went to a private school. It was a Catholic private school, and we were not going to say anything but yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. That's it. I mean, it was just, it was them. They had it all. We had to receive it, right? So it was like that. And I think we transfer that to our own realities, right? Like we feel like, okay, so I have the language. They don't have any language, right? They come to level 1. They don't have anything. I'm gonna give it all to you. And when we have that, so we're kind of asking our learners to leave who they are at the door. Mm-hmm. We are asking, there is not an intention to know our learners. And the learner's identity don't play a role. Like, it's, you know, it really doesn't play a role in what we do in class. And I think that goes beyond our classrooms. I think it's how we act sometimes as teachers. We are tending to overcorrect. We want to correct accents. We want to correct idioms. We want to correct language. I mean, how many times, and I'm gonna have a disclaimer here right now, just so you know, I have done it, right? Oh. I've done this to my students. I have done it. I thought that I was helping them to have a better language, and I was educating them, and I was giving them all the skills and the tools because I knew better, right? So I want to disclaim this because I don't want to. This has been for me a journey where I'm really reflecting, and I'm starting reflecting more when my kids start going to school. When I felt like people were correcting me for my accent, when I start feeling that I was being subject of the same things that I was putting my students on, right? Like when people kind of like look at me and I'm presenting, and then people kind of like, I just cannot even understand because her accent, or where is she from? What she has this accent, and then you kind of like see, and I was doing the same to my students, right? Like it's not like, oh, I'm this saint angel. So I think what is important is that we first are authentic and real. And for many years, I remember having heritage speakers and native speakers coming with a language, right? Incredible language that they learn from their moms, from their grandmothers, from their grandparents, from the uncle. And then they came and said, like, no, you don't say like that. That's wrong. So because it's a deficit, right? Like we see them as, I'm gonna help you to get better because you're not there. Because you don't have the language, because you didn't go to school in Guatemala or in Honduras or in Colombia. So I'm gonna teach you how to do. So another thing that we do is we assign new names or easiest names to pronounce to students because it's easier, or because we just feel like that's a good thing. Now I'm gonna tell you about this assigning new names. I never did it for one reason. I was so worried about my own English, because when I start teaching Spanish, I only use English. Like in my mind, it's like, oh, I need to, I mean, like, isn't that so crazy? So when I was teaching in Spanish, I was using English. And I'm gonna tell you words that I was so worried about my English in my class that I didn't have bandwidth to be able to learn another language, like another name. Like, no, that was too much. So I was so worried trying not to pronounce words like beach, right? I was like, I cannot pronounce that. So I said like, okay, I cannot say beach. I have to go. They go to the ocean because I couldn't say beach. I couldn't say sheet of paper. How in the world was it? So I said like piece of paper. And I had to have like 2 pairs of t-shirts and change during lunch because I was sweating. I was sweating, like mortified that I was going to say a word and it wasn't going to go. I couldn't understand anything that they said to me. So I was like, yeah, like no. And I was just trying to talk a lot so they couldn't talk. Because if they talked back to me, I could understand what they were saying. Because we were always speaking in English, because that's how I thought that's how I thought it was. So I never assigned new names in Spanish. Not because I thought it was a bad practice, but because I couldn't keep up with all the things. I was so focused to try to maintain a good language for my students because I thought that we are judged by our language, right? So I was so focused on trying to have a good pronunciation. And I remember that I rehearsed before and I kept asking my husband, how do you say that? Can you repeat it for me? And I was so focused on that because I thought that that was what I had to do. So I never did that. But I think when we do that, we're really kind of asking our students to leave who they are at the door. So if you say, you know, Meredith, that's too hard for me, I'm going to call you Maria. I'm saying, Meredith, can you please just leave yourself outside because when you come here, you're Maria. So I think those are some kind of like reflection of our deficit model approach. Now, we also judge a lot, like, right, as teachers, like hairstyle, clothing styles, appearance, another preference, right? Like if you see a kid with a tattoo or with the hair like this, like what are you doing with that? And with the shirt like this, and with the pants, like we want to fix. Like I think we want to educate, right? And so what is education and what are we doing with our students' identity, language, skills, talents? So I think sometimes we assume that the learners don't bring anything to the learning experience because we're the teachers. They're the students. They're just learning. And we are with the big role to teach them everything. And I think that that was one of my aha moments when I start understanding this change. Now, this is my disclaimer. I think I have two. We do it to other educators. I have seen so many times, educators correcting other educators. I remember, I don't know when the big thing about giving Spanish names was like very bring to our attention, which I think is great, right? Like we needed to talk about that. But it was a teacher that said, oh, I give Spanish names. What's wrong? That teacher would be crucified, right? Like crucified because like how dare you like can we just understand that we need to understand that everybody is going to be at different levels or in their journey as educators, and we need to seek for comprehension, like really need to like have these conversations in a way that I'm not thinking that because Meredith gives Spanish names to her students, then Meredith doesn't have any value as a teacher. No, Meredith has tons of values and she has great ideas. And if Joseph is a first-year teacher and he's saying that he corrects all the wrong conjugations because he thinks that he's helping his students, then we're not going to just say, you know, Joseph, you don't know anything and blah, blah, blah. No, we are going to talk because he has value and Christine has value and Jenny has value and Christina has value because we're amazing. So when we like kind of value educators and really embrace their voices, I think we're going to be so much stronger than we are right now. But sometimes when we are educators, we can be really, really hard on each other. I cannot tell you how many times I have been corrected. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have received emails from teachers correcting my PowerPoints. By the way, you're going to find misspelled errors in this PowerPoint. You know, it's going to be. It's going to happen. I do my best. I look, I go through, I misspell. I mispronounce words. I don't conjugate verbs correctly. And I just cannot tell you how many times I have been corrected. And then I see other, right, like when I'm presenting to other teachers, but how many times we have non-Spanish speakers or non-French speakers or non-German speakers teaching German, French, and English, and other native speakers like correcting them because they're not good enough in their language to be teaching Spanish. Because, you know, like, oh, who are you to be teaching Spanish if you cannot use that word correctly? Or what? So I think we do it to other educators. We don't only do it to our students, we do it to other educators in different aspects. And I have done it. I have done it. I have done it. And I try not to, and I think I'm doing so much better job, and I'm being more intentional, but I do it. So it's like, it's just, I feel like when we are having a real conversation is when we grow. We are vulnerable when we say, yes, I have done it. So can you help me? Let's talk about it. How can we do this better? Do you have any ideas? What is the line, right? Like, what is the line? Because I think, what is the line? I want to teach. I want my students to have acquired a good, rich vocab and different ways for them to express themselves. Now, I want to respect their language and I want to respect their accent, but I also want to enrich it. So what is the line? Can you help me, Meredith? What do you think? Christine, what do you think? And when we have an honest conversation, instead of shutting people down, because that is what we do a lot as teachers with each other and with our students. Mm-hmm. And I think that's damaging for everybody. And one of the things that I found like incredible is what you have been doing with this webinar series, where you bring so many different voices of so many different teachers, because that hasn't, I mean, I haven't seen it, and it just makes it so powerful. Like, you are empowering so many voices, and you're providing a platform for us to talk about things that are important for us, and we haven't seen this before. So these are I think that when we start doing this, you don't only do it for our teachers and our profession, but how you're modeling this for everybody else, right? It's just incredible, incredibly powerful to allow that. Because when we have talking about accents and identity and colloquial language, in a deficit model, we see accents not desirable. Have you seen, like, go look in Google and Google it, how many things you can practice to eliminate your accent? Because your accent may not be desirable. Why? Because people may not be willing to listen to you, right? And the only moment that we're gonna be okay listening to different accents is when we keep listening to different accents. It's like, that is the only way, because it's hard. I mean, I have to say, it's hard sometimes. Some of us have like a strong accent. Like, what is she saying? And sometimes you kind of like lean and say, what is she saying? What she meant? And it's so much easier when you don't have those strong accents to understand and enjoy and kind of relax. But the only way that we're gonna be able to do it is that we keep doing it. Like, we keep listening to these accents. So I think, and then when I have a student in my class, and he is from Ecuador, but he was born here and he doesn't speak much Spanish. And he doesn't like to speak in class much because he is afraid that the other students are gonna make fun of his accent because he has an American accent. So that is what we have been doing for so many years when our students say like, hola, and we just kind of like mimicking that, like, oh, hola, el great. And we think it's funny. I mean, it can be funny, it's totally funny. Right. But for our students, they feel like, my son has the same issue. And he doesn't speak too much like in my country, in Colombia, because my aunts, my friends make fun of his accent, right? And it's like, oh, tough it up, it's not too bad. But it is, right? It is. And I think we just need to say, it's not funny. My son, his name is Mateo. So his friends in kindergarten, they call him Mateo Tomato. And they thought that it was funny. No, not funny. No, not funny. No, it's funny. So I think it's just because we just feel like it's okay. And we just, instead of saying, oh my gosh, what an incredible, and you are like, where are you from? No, I'm from United States. And you are from United States and you speak Spanish like that? That is so awesome. I love it, right? So when we start changing our approach, and instead of like saying, oh no, that's terrible, I don't want to hear it, is embrace it. Then we have good accents and bad accents, right? And then the colloquial language is penalized, right? And I think that happens tons with heritage speakers, with native speakers that bring and say, my grandmother said it like this. And we say like, no, how in the world? Instead of embracing it. I had a student that is from Mexico, and the other day they use way a lot. And the other day I said something, but I'm not from Mexico, I'm from Colombia. So I thought that I knew how to use way. And then I say, oh, no es verdad, way. And then he said, no, señora, that's not how you use it. And I said, oh, no, how? And then he explained it to me like, oh my God, this is something. And then he taught me cool. Like, what is cool? And he's like, look, this is como bro. Like in Mexico, they call cool. I'm like, oh my God, okay, tell us everything about this. And what else, Julian? And then Julian came and told us about cool and way and no manches. And right? Yes. So isn't that amazing? Instead of like, you don't say cool, you don't say bro, because that's not an academic language. It's changing how we see our students. It's just really embracing who they are and enrich their experiences instead of, let me tell you how it is. So I think also we feel like colloquial language is connected to competence, level of education, and trustworthiness. And that happened to me so much. And it happens to me because I went to law school. So in my community in Colombia, language was connected with education. Having a good vocab was really important. Having a good academic language was really important. And people would judge you depending on how you talk. So that was back when I was living in Colombia. So when I came here, it took me only 12 years to put myself in front of an audience. That wasn't my kids, right? Anything above 18 years old, I wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Because I was mortified that my trustworthiness, my level of education, my level of competence was going to be judged by the many, many errors that I was going to make. So then think about 14-year-old kid. Then think a kid that maybe his grandparents are from, I don't know, France or from Mexico, and then they want to bring a saying that the mom taught them. And if we don't have the space, the safe space in the class, tell me if that student is gonna open his mouth. It will not. I mean, like, I would be terrified. It took me 12 years to put my face in front of an audience because I was mortified. So I think back about our students in terms of their accents, their errors in pronunciation, their language, right? Like when they say something like in Spanish, it would be say, you know, el tengo. And then we jump as teachers and say, it's not el tengo, it's el tiene, it's third form. How many times? And we open the eyes. And if the poor kid is in AP, oh my gosh, we think that is Don Quixote de la Mancha. We think that in AP, our kids should be Gabriel Garcia Marquez, right? So the poor kid comes to AP super excited, right? Like, oh, I'm in AP class, I'm such a big time. And then they say the first sentence like, no, you don't say that. How in the world you're in AP? Where have you been? So we are like, and I think we have the best intention. I mean, I did have my best intention when I did it. I opened my eyes like this big and say, how in the world you are in AP and you cannot compare? Like, oh my gosh, like how? Because we just, you know, and then when they say, you know, things like hijo, like, right, they're going to say son, and instead of hijo, we say hijo, and like, hijo, it's a hijo. When that kid is going to open their mouth again. So I mean, like, there's so many examples that we can say, and many things that I did. I'm writing my apology letters. I'm gonna just have, and every time that I see a kid, I'm gonna just give it to them. Like, I'm so sorry. I hope that I didn't create a permanent damage, because, you know, I was there. Like, I was, and I still, sometimes I catch myself like, Claudia, I mean, like, you don't know better at this time? Like, what's going on with you?
Absolutely. Well, it's like that thing that we do, like you said, that expectation, the same way that we're harsh on teachers, we're harsh on students, and we're harsh on ourselves. Like we can't like breathe and let it go for a second, because like you said, I think we crush a lot of students' motivation, because unfortunately, it's like Deirdre mentioned in the chat, like with things like clothing and hair, like if you don't do dress code, whatever, you could get in trouble. Like it could come back on you. And if you're sending kids to AP and they're not ready, whatever that means, then your colleagues are like, Claudia, they don't even know Sarah Nestar. Okay, I've been Spanishing 20 years. I don't know Sarah Nestar. Like I do
Thank
it
you.
wrong.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Who knows it on that? I don't know. You know what happened to me, Meredith? I have very smart students, and I have a student say, okay, senora, you have been spending the entire year teaching about predator and imperfect. That's when I spend all my year teaching about grammar. Now I don't do that. I mean, like, you know, whatever. But back in the years, I taught the entire year predator and imperfect. Oh my gosh, I love it. You know, and I learned all these acronyms. Oh my gosh, I love it. And I have my charts. It was amazing. And there was this smart kid, and she came and she said, Senora, so when do you use a star in the predicate? And I was like, what do you mean? But like estuvo, you know, like that's it. No, because you said that a star is for location and feelings. And then you told us that imperfect is used for location and feelings. So when do you use a star? Like, I don't know. I really don't know.
You don't, okay?
And the poor kid, like, but you taught me that. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I lied, kid.
I lied. I told you that there was a rule when there is not a rule. Yeah, there is not a rule. So, and I think exactly like you said, and I feel like one of the comments that we have a lot, or struggles that we have as a language teacher, is that my kids don't speak enough, my kids don't engage enough, my kids don't participate enough. And sometimes we just need to look and say, okay, so what happened when they participate? How is my reaction when they participate? How am I allowing that participation? How does participation look like? Because if participation means that I have to write a paragraph, maybe nobody's going to participate, right? Like, who is going to write a paragraph? But how is that participation? Because I think when we come from a place that we see our students as, you know, these kids that don't know anything, cannot bring anything. I think we are just really hammering of lack of confidence. Conflicts with own identity. Like, I see that at tons in immigrant students. Like, and not only Hispanic students, just Asian students. I mean, all the students, Caribbean, like all these students are kind of like, because their identity hasn't been embraced by anyone. It's a problem, right? They are in English as a second language. And some students are saying, I'm not proficient in English and I'm not proficient in Spanish. What am I proficient for? Like, I don't make it anyway. And there is a refusal to use their own voice. And we have huge problems of lack of engagement, because we just don't want to, we don't support that, because we feel like we just need to provide this perfect way to speak. And I think that is a problem, a really big problem. I love this. Asset-based teaching seeks to unlock students' potential by focusing on their talents. And I think that is my approach. I just want to see every single kid that is in my class. I want, you know, I have two boys, Lucas and Mateo, and I think they're amazing. And I think they have so many talents. And I pray every day that they're going to find a teacher that they see what they're made for, and they can like really, really unlock their potential. because I think we are so hooked into ser and estar and predator and imperfect and pluscuamperfecto and all this, that we're forgetting that we are dealing with amazing kids in front of us and with huge talents, with huge interests, with huge experiences that can enrich our lives, and we can learn from them as they can learn from us. So I always try to look at my students with those eyes, like looking for something, looking for that talent, looking like, let me find out. Sometimes it's easier than others, because I think it's easier when kids have good relationships with adults, when they trust adults in a good way, like when they have had a good experience, when they have had a good experience in school, they're going to be able to share more, to talk to you more. There's some kids that are going to be like, I don't want to talk, because I have been damaged so many times that I'm not going to open my mouth. So it doesn't happen 100%. Like you're going to say, oh, so you have a great relationship with 100% of your students? No, with 100, but with a lot of them. And I think that have allowed me to be me, to be like imperfectly me in the class, like full of flaws. I'm a mess. I never find my phone. I never, much less. I mean, I'm mute. Señora, we cannot hear you. We cannot see you. Where is it? Where is the presentation? It doesn't click. I always mess up the links. Like, you know, I put the link for my 2A in 4A, and I'm so imperfect. But I can be so imperfect in front of my kids, and they still respect and they still think that they can learn from me as I can learn from them, because it's this relationship where we see each other as a great, full of assets and full of talent. So I think how we can do this, I think we need to see students as main players in the classroom. I feel like we really need to change our approach, and instead of saying, let me tell you everything about ser and estar, present and imperfect, present perfect tense, subjunctive, is like, let me see who you are. Like, let's stop. Let's stop that. Let me see who you are. Let's contribute. Like, let me see who you are. I love to do start student interview, and I love to ask my students, what languages do your family speak? And it's amazing, and I love it. And I just kind of like, teach me something. Go to your mom, call your grandmother, call your grandfather. Let's put them here and let's learn from each other. Like, what do you eat? How do you celebrate these? What do they read? Like, just let me find out more, because that is a great way for me to grow and a great way for them to grow. Co-creating curriculum for me is huge. Like I stopped using a textbook because, you know, first, according to the textbook, we were like all inadequate. Like we were like really low proficient. So that textbook didn't help me. And it was about who was that people? Like, who were they? So now I feel like I want to provide experiences to my students where they have tons of voice. So I want to design activities that tap on my students' talents, experiences, interests. I want them to know. I really spend tons of time getting to know them, so I know who sings, who plays sports, who is like a gamer, who is the computer guy, who loves to do YouTube, who loves to cook, and I want to know that, because I'm gonna think about that when I'm bringing curriculum to my class. I want to empower voice by choice and support, right? Like, I'll draw. Use the English, right? Use language, use whatever you have. I want to support that. Like, you know, that me in the past, I was like, I went from one side to the other. First, I only use English. Then I decided that we only use Spanish. And you cannot dare to use one word in English, because you will be penalized with 3 zeros in a row. So it was from one place to the other. So now it's kind of like, okay, I want you to participate. I want to hear your voice. Draw it, sing it, just, you know, words, phrases. And if you need to use some English or your first language, we'll figure it out. But it's just allowing that choice. I value differences and identities, like more than ever. Like, I make a point to say it. Like, I love to see my kids with a new hairstyle. And I say, I love it. I love to see them with a different t-shirt. I love to see them with, what are you listening? And I say, like, as long as it doesn't have bad words, please, because I'm not going to recognize it. So can I hear it? And I want to know what they're watching. I make a big deal about it because I feel like I need to model. I need to model authenticity, and I need to model respect. And I think those are like my main values in my class, to bring that to my students. How do I do it? I do social and emotional learning check-ins every single day. I ask my students, how are you doing? How are we doing? I do start student interview, not once, no, throughout the year, because I feel like, Hispanic Heritage Month, and then we talk about Celia Cruz and Cesar Chavez, and then we don't talk about any more Hispanics. Black History Month, and then we talk about, two Celia Cruz and somebody else, and then we don't talk about it. Historic Woman Month, and then we talk about it. So we talk about it like for the week. But I think the power is when on a daily basis we model this through. And it doesn't mean that we're gonna have to go to 5 a.m. and don't sleep because we're creating all this new curriculum. It's just doing little things every day. How are you doing? Do ask questions to your students. Like, what do you, if you are in the food unit, what is the favorite food that your mom prepares for you? Like, when you are sick, what is the thing that your mom makes for you? Is there any recipe that your family loves? Something like that, right? Like, if you're talking about music, like, what is that song that just kind of like you need to listen when you're down? What is the show that you love to hear? In terms of clothes, what is your favorite clothing item? What is the favorite place that you have in your house? Just asking questions. I do calendar talks every week. I do calendar talks and I do story asking. I just love to have that, and it fits me and it has helped me tons. So I do this every day in my class. Like, how do you feel? You feel like a cheetah or you feel like un oso perezoso, and why? And then I don't do it to practice language. I don't do it so my students know the verb me siento. I do it because I want to know. So if Kelly says, oh, me siento como un oso perezoso, I say, oh, ¿por qué, Kelly? And Kelly said, because I didn't sleep. And I say, how come you didn't sleep? Because I was playing video games. Oh my gosh, Kelly, we need to stop the video game at night. Oh, I know, but it's so good. Like, so what is it what you're playing? Oh, Call of Duty. I don't know what it is. I like Call of Duty, but how? And I know, and I have a test today. And I say, oh my gosh, who else have a test today? And then Joseph, like, I have a test today, and I didn't sleep either because I was playing with Kelly, the video game. I'm like, oh my gosh, señores, right? So it's not like I'm practicing language. I want to know. I honestly and authentically want to know my students. It's something that drives me. That's why I get up every day, Meredith. Not because I love to be in Zoom, not because I love to do near pod per deck, go formative, not because of that. I love to hear about my kids. Like, it gives me so much energy. It just gives me a reason to do something cool. I don't do it for anything else but for them. I did in my Facebook community, I follow this guy. I mean, if you don't know him, you need to listen to his podcast. Is Tang Hang, and he is in, I don't know where he is right now. I think he is in, he was in South Korea last summer, but he was moving, I think, to Thailand. And he has a podcast that is empowering LLMs. And it's amazing, amazing. And I started following him 2 years ago, and that's when I really kind of like everything clicked. about this asset-based approach. And he did a session in my Facebook community last summer that is great. So you can click there to watch that. So I asked my students all type of questions. I said, you know, Bryce Henstrom is a genius, of course. Is a genius, is absolutely genius. And he talked about the special person interview. And I thought at the beginning, oh yeah. It's amazing. I mean, like, it's amazing what you can do. So I asked my students, like, I asked, what are you afraid of? And like, imagine the conversation that can come with that. It's just, language is just what we use to communicate, but my class is not about the language. The class is about who we are. It's an amazing, I mean, it's amazing if we can have that. I mean, it doesn't happen because then you have the EOCs and all that stuff, so it's sad. I do calendar talk. I ask my students, so they have tests, they have so many tests and for things, and they have so much homework. I mean, like, what's the deal with homework? They have tons of homework, tons of homework. And I asked them, you know, you have a test, and said, so who has a test? And then they love to come to my class because they know that they're going to figure it out. And I say, I love to have your class in the first period because I know what I didn't do. Like, they know what they missed, the homework that I didn't do, and we talk about it. I do story asking, and that's how we build the curriculum. We draw, we tell stories, my students do, and this is what makes me love what I do. Like, I just don't know if I would be able to continue doing with all the 25 other things that we have to do if I wouldn't have this. I just value this so much. I want to provide my students with tons of support so they can communicate. So I do a lot of words. You know what I thought in the past? I cannot give all those words to my students because that's cheating. They may use it. Do you hear me? Do you hear me what I say, Meredith? They may use it.
I'm not a walking dictionary. That's what we say. We say, I am not we literally are. Yes, we are.
Yeah, that's my job. What about when a kid says, how can I say my brother is annoying? And then you respond, that is not in the vocab list. You cannot say that.
Not allowed to. That's not a word we're doing right now.
I went to the movies with my dad yesterday. No, we're not talking about the past tense right now.
Yeah, not yet.
Sorry. We are not doing past tense right now. We do it later. That's not right now. It's not in the textbook. It's not in the textbook. I've been guilty. I've done it. I really, it's just, you know, providing the words to them. Like, they don't know them. We need to provide the words to them. If we provide the words to them in an intentional way, they will use it. They will use it. And then they're going to be engaged. They're going to be talking. They are going to be just helping you in the class. And it's not going to be crickets. All the time. It's, you know, sometimes no matter what you do, there are crickets. And then, you know, that's when I love to be in Zoom because, like, oh my gosh, I love all these comments when nobody has said a word.
No comments. I know you, you're bad. You make up names too, like I do. Like, oh, Kelly, great job. There's no Kelly. That's the wrong class.
Oh my gosh, I love those names. I love them. I thank you so much. I am so proud. I know you love this class, right? So I think providing those words are so important. Emotional scaffolds. I really needed a lot of emotional scaffolds at the beginning. And just with time, I have been able to gain the confidence that I need to use my voice. But in the past, I wasn't. And now I feel like, wow, I can give that to my students in the class. Isn't that amazing? And you know, how many students you have, Meredith? I have 160. How many do you have?
Yeah, same.
Exactly. If you can get the voice of 10 students, wouldn't that be worth it? Wouldn't that be worth it? Because we always think, oh, I need 100%. Like, no, it's not going to have 100%. Like, you know, no. Like, no. I have 2 boys, and I hope that like at least one is gonna stay with me, loving and amazing, right? 50% is success rate. But I feel like when I'm intentional with this and I'm really having my class and an asset model approach, I enjoy it much more because I stopped being the police officer in my class. Like I stopped being policing language, policing hairstyles, policing clothing style, policing slangs, policing accent, policing everything, because I have this image in my head of what is the perfect student, my goal student, and I'm gonna be working every day to make my students this. No, what about if we let them be and enrich that and amplify that voice? What about if we amplify who they are and we give them confidence and we give them identity and we celebrate their differences and we celebrate those accents and we celebrate every time that they open their mouth to talk, and how much we would enjoy it and how much they would enjoy our classes. Because this doesn't happen, right? Like it doesn't happen in math, right? In math, the math teacher is telling them that they don't know anything about math and they're going to be taught everything about math. The history teacher is saying like, oh my gosh, I just don't believe that these kids nowadays don't know anything about history. So they have been like pounding every single class about all the things that they don't know. So it's just like one after the other, and we want them to participate. Like we want them to use their voice, but we keep telling them the 20 things that they don't know. So for me, it has transformed, like absolutely transformed my teaching. I get excited to teach most of the days, not all the days, most of my days I get excited. So this is a couple of things that I do. I love to bring like real things. So I follow a lot of people in Instagram, and that's what I use Instagram mostly for. So this is like graffiti by Saner, which is a graffitero from Mexico. And he did this for Valentine's Day. So I bring and say, who would you like to hug today that you cannot because of COVID? And I wrote it, and they share so much, right? Like when you put it like that, and I gave them all the vocab, they just had to like fill in the blank, but it was awesome. And I feel like we need to do a lot of emotional scaffolds. So for me, it's super hard to pronounce names. I'm very slow in language acquisition, like very slow. I don't go fast. The phonetic part for me is very difficult. So for me, pronouncing names is super hard. But I make my best effort to pronounce their names correctly. Model and expect respect, right? Like I'm not going to make fun of them. I'm not going to make fun of the teacher next door. I'm gonna model respect, not only for my students, but for my colleagues too. And when I get it wrong, I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna own it, and I'm gonna say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will apologize to my students when I lose it, because sometimes I lose it, right? I'm gonna try to stay, sometimes.
Oh, you mean I shouldn't be snarky like I was today, where I was like, no, it's fine. I'll just be here on myself, just by myself alone. And then I had to apologize. I was like, sorry.
Sorry, that was a lot. But I never do it the same day, because I'm just kind of like that. It's hard for me to just come back, but I go do it the last and say, last class, I was kind of like too much, right? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, it's okay, senora, we understand. But just modeling that is so important. So stay comprehensible, have clear expectation. You tweet something today that I thought that it was great. Do not retaliate with grades, right? Like, like those things, like don't, it's so tempting. So tempting. So tempting.
It was the tone. Are you still taking our highest grade this week? Not all of them. And I said, wouldn't you hate if I took the average? It's terrible. That's a mean thing to say. I said sorry, but I meant it. And her eyes
But
got big, so she would hate it if I took the average. She's like, I only do one because you only take one. I see who you are. Oh.
But isn't that so hard for us, because we are so human, and I think we're gonna keep, I'm gonna give you an example that I did with my son. I have learned so much to being a mom. Oh my gosh, I mess up my kids so much. I hope that they're gonna end up to being good kids, because oh my gosh, I know. So one time, my son Lucas, my oldest one, is really similar to me. He's very emotional. He's very passionate. And when he gets mad, he gets really, really mad, just like me. And he was screaming one time. And I came back and I said, Lucas, why are you screaming at me? You shouldn't be screaming at And I said, oh my gosh, I'm just doing what I told you not to do. I just did that. So I think having honor their names, model and expect respect, staying comprehensible, and be positive, right? It's just so hard, but being positive, trying to like be human, but understand that they are incredible kids that are bringing so much to our classrooms. And I think providing a diverse curriculum is something that I have been very intentional in the last 3 years. And that's one of the reasons that I just stopped using my textbook. And it's just because I want to. Sí. So, for example, this is my mom, right? This is my life. And that happens when I'm teaching with my students. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I've been yelled by my mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. So this is something that I did for my classes, and this is something that I have, with women, right? So I bring Sor Juana, I bring Diana Trujillo, I bring Renata Flores, and I bring Goya. And my purpose for me is for have all my students to see themselves in my curriculum, right? Like to connect with themselves. Oh, now is the dog.
Your house is like my house. I know. Chella says she thought we were getting a special person Zoom bomb. Like, hello, hi, tell us about yourself. Amazing. I told you my dog was gonna bark, so your dog heard that I talked about my dog.
This is so funny. But so I think we have the incredible power to do this, right? Like we can do this, we can adjust, we can bring. So this is what we did the last 3 weeks in my class, and we talk about these 4 wonderful women, and it was amazing. Like it was amazing, the response of my students. So at the end, it said like, who impressed you the most? And everybody had a great reason, right? So a kid said, imagine that Diana girl. I mean, she came without any English, and now she's working in NASA. She's amazing. And then somebody said, oh, what about Goyo? Look at her. I mean, she's an Afro-Latina, and she's singing. And then I put up a video of Renata Flores, who's singing in Quechua, who is, by the way, Quechua, because it's an indigenous language, is seen as the language of uneducated people, right? Like, because, it's Quechua, it's not Spanish. Like, oh, what do you mean? Like, Quechua? No. And I showed them a video, and they were like, oh my gosh. And I said, and what about this? Sor Juana, she decided to be a nun so she could have access to education. Imagine that. So it's like, you're speaking to all of them. And then I asked my students, and this was today, and this is like a screenshot of my class today. I asked my students to choose one, and I gave them 30 names. And I have somebody that chose athletes, somebody that chose singers, somebody that chose painters, somebody that chose like a writer, because that is like and they're like looking for them. And I said, just spend some time, research them, and find who you want to write about. And it just brings me so much joy when I see my students connecting with the content, because it's not something that I want them to do, right? Like I want them to do X or Y because this is my personality. I tend to do like, Carlos Vives, Shakira, because those are those are my people, my age, mana, like, you know, what are you talking about? That my people, my age. But having this space for them is so powerful, so incredibly powerful in the class. So I just want to have an incredible invitation for all of you to kind of think about how can we amplify the voices of our students in our class, how we can honor who they are. And I understand that, you know, it's sometimes we see them and we want to make them better, right? Like we want to better our student. But sometimes instead of better our student, make them better, what about enrich each other? And sometimes for me, what has helped me is to see them as me learning from them too. Like, I don't know all. Like, tell me more about you because I want to learn from you with your accents, with your languages, with your skills, with your talents. So, you know, I feel like this has been a tremendous transformation in my class. You know, I think this has been the last 3 years. I've been really looking into this, and this is what has brought me the most joy and growth as a person, as a human being, as a teacher, as a mom. And it has changed the relationship with my own children. It's just seeing every single human being as rich, right? Like, oh my gosh, you bring so much. I want to hear you. So that, I don't know, Meredith, that's my passion.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks at things for it comes back to even language proficiency. It's looking for what is there, like you said, not what's missing. And it's not like the can do statements are what they can do, not what they haven't learned yet, you know, or they're not the didn't memorize statements. Like, ooh, a star in the preterite, you need to work on that. Like, whatever. I mean, it focuses on what they're bringing to the table, like you said, not what they're lacking. But I feel like it's also brought a sense of calm to my teaching in a way, because like you said, we're not so taken with what they don't know yet. It's like, okay, you can focus on like, what are they doing comprehensively? And then, you know, let's go from there, and let's make sure that you see yourself in what we're doing, and that I have enough support to be able to do what I've assigned for you to do, you know.
And I think when you change that mind, and I'm going to stop here because I'm going to stop this so we can talk. Okay. So, and I think one of the things that have changed for me is that now I listen, right? Like before I was looking for, is he conjugating right? Is she doing a noun, adjective agreement, verb, noun agreement? Are we putting our plurals correct? And I wasn't paying attention to the message at all. Like I was focusing on how can I fix the subjunctive? How can I fix the conjugation? And all my energy was devoted to that. All my lesson planning was to trying to provide my students with the structures so they could conjugate correctly. Yeah. So when that stopped, I got creative. Because then I wanted to like, ooh, let me talk about like, ooh, what do they eat? Ooh, I want to know. So what are they wearing? What is the thing that now they wear? What are the video games that they're playing? What are the singers that they're listening? And I think you enrich really the communication and the language used in the class.
Absolutely. Well, and you give them opportunities to talk about things that they legitimately care about, you know, which is themselves a lot of times, which great, don't we all? And I think it comes back to your original points about accents and just belonging in a language class. If you're too self-conscious to talk about anything, and if the teacher hasn't made, I mean, even the memes we use, they go, Senora, that's an old meme. And I'm like, old? Last year? And they're like, we don't even know who those people are. I'm like, no, it was so funny. Oh, and then they use stuff that I'm like, what's this crap? You know, because I don't understand it, because it's got like 7 layers of the internet to like a 15-year-old, and I don't watch TikTok. So I don't know how the things work. And that if you started young, like I did, I know you were doing other things. If you started young, like straight out of college, that can be really disconcerting when you start feeling yourself like distance, because you always heard people say, I don't even know what they're saying anymore. And you were like, oh, come on. And now I'm like, oh, I literally can't understand that. Like, they're like you said, they're like, it's all one syllable, bah, ka, bet. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, I think I'm agreeing to something. I don't know. And we just laugh because, you know, there's more and more disconnect. So the more that you can, I think, genuinely be curious, like you said, in the ways that you can, the more they're like, the more it's, I think they build trust. You can't build trust.
Absolutely.
Trust.
Absolutely.
Don't trust
And then you don't have to be like really saying like, okay, so I need to have 3 sentences, or I'll give you an error. No, they're going to start writing more. They're going to start sharing more because it's, and I read some research about vocab acquisition, and they said that, of course, and it makes all sense. You are going to acquire more the words that you want to say, not the words that your teacher wants you to use, right? Like, of course, if you want to say, if there are messages that you want to say, if there are words that you want to use, if there are topics that you want to talk, then you are going to be so much more likely to engage in an authentic way. And also, remember the online translator thing? So the online translator thing will be reduced when we allow our students to provide the language without the perfection. Like, who is accurate? Like, who is accurate? Like, how many times, like, let's talk about a writer. How many people edit the book because it gets published? How much money a writer will pay to get the book edited before it gets published? And we want our students to write with accuracy. Like, what is accuracy?
I've never thought about that. Ugh.
I mean, like, right? Like, how many? I mean, I don't know you, but because I have to write a lot of in English, it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, it's terrible. I'm just super fun in Spanish. It's terrible. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, you know who edits my work and I have to pay? My son.
Which one?
My son. He is really good at English. He's 14. And I have to say, Lucas, please. This is important to me. Can you write? Can you read it, please? And they're like, Mommy, what do you want to say here? I'm a grown-up woman. I'm a lawyer. I have lived in this country for 15 years. And I have my 14-year-old son editing my writing some days.
You know, hey, get it where you can. He's in home. It's in-house help.
Right? So I feel like I agree. I mean, I'm so smart in Spanish. I'm so fun in Spanish. I'm just like incredible. Like, I am like incredible in Spanish. My kids think that my students, they're like, Señora, you're so fun in Spanish. I'm like, I know, I am. I'm so fast. Oh my gosh, in social media is terrible because I think about something and I want to like be funny, right? And I'm gonna, by the time I point and I have to go and Google it, how do you say that? Like, too late, like, bye.
That's me in Spanish sometimes. Like when I'm hanging out with people, I'm like, no, I'm clever. I'm fast and I'm witty and I just don't know enough words. As Joe and I have been in a taxi cab in Cuba and I'm just like, I'm out of words. Like, this is smart. We wanted to talk with Johandri so badly and we did well. We did great. I mean, we did great, but it was like, I didn't have enough like idioms. And so I just kept, you know, like, oh, you ever cantar.
Hard. And I said, like, if we live it, because we all are language teachers. So we all live this on a daily basis, either because we have to teach a language that we're not native speakers. And then you have a kid that says, so Prophet White, how do you say this? I say, like, well, I don't have a clue, right? Or you are like me, like a non-native speaker living in this country with so many struggles with the language. So we live like that. But then when it comes to our students, we have these expectations, like are so unrealistic. And instead of like just giving the voice, like, you know, when you laugh with me, when you are like just making me feel super comfortable when I see Marisol and when I see Kelly and you guys are smiling and like, oh my God, they're understanding what I'm saying. Like, oh yes, I'm super excited. So can we do the same for our students? So if my student is talking and I'm saying, oh my gosh, Marisol, ¿verdad? And if Marisol is struggling and I'm trying to help Marisol and I'm like, oh my God, Marisol, dame cinco. Marisol is going to keep sharing. Marisol is going to love the class. But if I come and Marisol is trying her best and I say, like, what did you say? Like with the face, right? Like, what did you say? Like,
thank God for the mask these days.
The face. Oh, and I had this great idea. You know, like sometimes you make these decisions. Like, what I was thinking? I have my mask that I has clear.
You have the clear one. Yeah.
Yeah, they can see me. So no, I cannot do it. But I just feel like, I don't know why we are language teachers. We face the struggle on a daily basis, either because we live in a country where we are not using, that is not our native language, or because we're teaching a language that is not our native language, which I think is, oh my gosh, you guys are amazing, because I don't know what would be my life teaching English. Oh my gosh. I mean, without mentioning the beach and the sheet and the...
Can they take a sheet to the beach? Can they put a sheet on a beach?
You know, like you have to do the standardized test and you have to read verbarian. And it's always say, you need to bubble the answer sheet. I never say that. And I say, you need to bubble the answer document.
You need to take a sheet on the, listen, just take the test.
So I just really think that we should know better, but we don't. It took me many years to understand that. It took me many years to understand what a great, incredible opportunity I had to like really amplify the voice of my learners in my class, amplify their identity. I think for many years, I had that identity crisis myself when I came here and I was fighting to like kind of smooth my accent. I was fighting to find the correct words. I was fighting to fit in the model, right? Like let me see what everybody does so I can do whatever, instead of being me, because you know, you feel judged, you feel whatever it is. And now that I understand my gift, like, right, like I have this great gift to be a teacher, like to be a Spanish teacher. I work every day in my class to try to really support that in my students, support their identity, support their language. My immigrant students, I love them. I cannot wait for them to teach me way and cool and all the language that they bring, and just kind of ask them if they have grandparents and grandmothers that know some other languages that they can bring, and kind of like value that, because when you as a teacher are saying, oh my gosh, I love it, Kelly, I love it, all the students are going to follow and they're going to say, oh yeah, it's cool. Oh yeah, really, that's so cool. And just bringing that to the class, I feel like is just a great gift and a great privilege that I have to be a teacher. I feel honored, and I feel that is what keeps me ongoing, because this is hard with the Zoom, the room,
all of it. Like this, I mean,
all of it.
Literally all of it. We were saying before we came on here, I know we're in like after party territory now. Before we came on, I was saying like, I didn't realize, like, you know how you have your, and we've said this in other webinars. So clearly it's a recurring theme, but I didn't realize the level of affirmations that I would need this year, because I'm a very optimistic, positive person. I'm like, glass half full, just glad to have a glass. This year, I'm like, I swear to God, you know, like I am a glass person going like, glass half full, glass is bone dry. I'm pissed off at what kind of glass I have. Like I'm just like, so every day I have had to like, so if you're like a prayer person and you feel like you're doing more of it, you're not crazy, because I shouldn't say crazy. You're not, you know, sort of gaslighting yourself. It's that thing of like, all of this is really hard. And I feel like we're not, I don't know, we have to have grace for students in some times, and I think that's wonderful. We have to make sure that we're also, like you said at the beginning, having grace for each other. And like, it's like a no judgment zone. If my colleague,
no judgment zone, no judgment zone.
All the time, we're all in English. I'm like, good for you. You're still teaching.
Yeah, exactly. You're still showing up. Absolutely, absolutely, Meredith. And I think if we are showing grace for other teachers, I think we all are gonna show up more. We all are gonna use our voices more, and we're gonna be more open to ask questions, right? And to ask for help. Because every time that we see something on social media about, you know, a teacher sharing something, and then all these bad, I mean, like judgment, like, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing that? Why you need to do this? Why you need to do that? Like, oh my gosh. I mean, like, who is gonna really try to approach or embrace or ask for help or anything? So I feel like, yes, we need to have grace, and I love that we are having so much grace for our students, but we need to do it to ourselves, because I mean, like, if we're not okay, there is no way that we're gonna do anything for anyone. So having grace for ourselves, for others in our profession, like, you know, I just hope that we just have a lot of empathy for teachers that have accents, that are teaching Spanish and are non-native Spanish native speakers. And if they share something and they have a mistake or an error or whatever error we call it, and then like, oh, but you have this and you missed this. And then we have these grammar police officers telling everybody where the accent mark should be. And then we're forgetting that it was an incredible resource that they share. And if you miss the accent mark, put it. Go ahead and put it.
Right.
And
do what we used to do. Just write it in there and then make the copies. Come on. Just do it with a pen.
It's like when the kid is telling you the great story that he had over the weekend and forgot to conjugate the verbs, and you're focusing on the conjugation of verbs, and you didn't even mention that he had an incredible story over the weekend. Like,
well, you end up punishing the behavior that you really want to see. It's your introverted child coming out of their room for the first time, and you go, oh, look who decided to join us. Well, what are you going to do? Go back to your room. This is why I don't join you. You know, like,
exactly. And Kelly made a great point. Say, post it on Facebook, and then 4 million people all point out the mistake, like the first 70. Yes, Kelly. And that happened with my students too. Señora, the link was wrong. Next one. Señora, the link was wrong. Señora, the link was wrong. Got it. It's the same for us. Like, somebody, I have seen so much. I really share a lot in my Facebook community, but I'm so reluctant to share outside my Facebook community, because, you know, I feel like my Facebook community, they know me. Like, they know my heart. They know where I'm coming from. So they're not going to pass judgment. But I'm terrified of Twitter, like terrified of that thing. Like, oh my God, I say, what about if I put the accent mark incorrectly? What about if I use the bad word? Or what about if I say, I'm terrified. Exactly. And then I'm not sharing, and I'm not sharing things that may be useful for some people, right? So we are kind of stealing on our gifts, because we all have talents, we all have gifts, and we're kind of stealing the word from our gift because we're so afraid. So we are so afraid to use our voice because we pass judgment all the time. So yeah, yes, absolutely, Kelly, I agree. And everybody said, and if you have something with grammar, then they're gonna kill you. Why are you teaching grammar? And if it's not grammar, why are you not teaching grammar? Oh, and is that level 3? What is the rigor? Like, stop.
Right. Yeah.
You're sharing. Thank you. The only thing that is like my mom, I have to say, my mom cooks for us all the time. And when my kids complain about, like, no. When somebody does something for you, the only thing that I want to hear is thank you. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. So if a teacher shares, if an educator shares, like, thank you. Thank you so much. Because first, you're sharing something that you did. Second, you were brave enough to put it out. So thank you. And I just feel like if we change that in our classes and with our own community, we're gonna just grow bigger, stronger, and unstoppable. Because we're language teachers, we're kind of incredible. Don't you agree? We're kind of like amazing. We're language teachers are like amazing. So fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're fun in all the languages. Mostly you in Spanish, me in English. But no. Well, it's like Chela said, you've got great communities like, like Lang Chat on Twitter or different things, but you wonder why people don't share. Maybe people don't wonder why people don't share, but you share a few things or you make yourself vulnerable and suddenly someone's like, I noticed you shared something 2 years ago, Joe. Do you think you could edit the accents on page 3 and then remake it and retweet? And you're like, absolutely not. Like, can you remove your name from it? No, I know that. Like, it's already a Word doc. Delete it. And I just take whatever. Like, it's really hard to share because it's so vulnerable. And like Myra mentioned in the chat too, it can sometimes feel like a little bit of a Shark Tank where you're like, uh-oh, like somebody just ripped something apart or, something was wrong or whatever. And whatever, we could go on about if that's a public call out or call in or call to the side or call under, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's like Brene Brown says, I'd rather get criticized by someone, who's also getting their ass kicked in the stadium with me, like you want to like take feedback from somebody else who's doing the same thing. So it can be hard sometimes when it feels like you share and people take and want, but then point out the things like that, or like, did you consider? Yes, I consider. It says in the tweet, it was my lesson yesterday. It already happened. Like we did this earlier today. Did you consider? Clearly not.
Absolutely.
But I will.
Absolutely. And everything with that. And I feel like we do have to have conversations, because I think as language teachers, we touch on a lot of topics in our classes in terms of diversity, access, equality. But I think it has to come from a place of compassion and empathy, knowing what a teacher has to deal. Like I feel like I do what I do. I have an administrator that support me 200%. I don't have health issues. My kids are healthy. I have a good life. I have students that have been supportive. I have parents, right? So I can get to do a lot of things. But if you are not in that situation and you can like show up, speak in English all the time and try to finish one lesson, you're a rock star, right? So it's like our realities are so different that we just cannot just say something. So I'm sure that if I'm in a situation that I'm like struggling so much and I see Meredith passing judgment on me, I will never approach Meredith. But if I'm in a situation, and I think I approached you like a year and a half ago, because I was kind of like trying to help my department to get together. And I saw you and I saw how real and authentic and kind of, like me, like, who. And then I send you an email and say, sure, I can help you. And I was like, oh my God, she says yes. Oh my God. And yeah, there to do that if I see you coming from a perspective that this is what we need to do in a language class and X, Y, and Z, and everybody that doesn't follow this is a bad teacher, because then I'm a bad teacher and I don't want to say I'm a bad teacher. So I feel like all these discussions to embrace, to enrich our classes are gonna happen more often, and I'm gonna reach more teachers if we are vulnerable and if we acknowledge the different realities. Because sometimes we just don't get to decide a lot of things. Sometimes we're not in the, but being a teacher is so hard. I mean, like, you go and you receive all this energy of your students, and then you have to do like what, bus duty, and then you have a parent conference, and then you have to stop by the administrator because you forgot to do your attendance, and your assistant principal is gonna get on you because you did your attendance wrong, and it's not even 7, and it's like, oh my gosh, and now you have to be in the door. Hi, sweet. Come on. I mean, like, being a teacher is tough. And some of us have been super lucky to have great places to be, great administrators. I don't have to do call bus duty. They don't put me parent conference at 7 a.m. in the morning. I mess up in my attendance, but they call me at the end of the day, not at the beginning. So
Right.
I can get to my class at 8 a.m. and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm in a good mood, right? So I just think that understanding that will make us so much better, and kind of like have that asset approach to all our relationship. Like, I'm not going to fix Marisol. I'm not going to fix Joseph. I'm gonna find, and I want to know everything about Joseph and Marisol, and we're gonna amplify their voices, and they're gonna help me, and I'm gonna help them, and we're gonna just be so much better. And if we do that in our classes, and if we do that in our educator with colleagues, it would be awesome.
Yep, absolutely. You made me think of something that, oh shoot. That's like, feels like class. I'm like, we were gonna, well, I guess we're done. Like, it's like I just end the Zoom. I'm like, I think there was more to the lesson, but I don't remember. Shoot, what'd you just say that made me think of that? No, attendant, no, doesn't matter. I was just gonna add too that you do share so much, which is so nice. Oh, that's what it was. You said that about the circumstance, and you do share so much. And I think it's important. Like, I think that's an important acknowledgement. And I think that's okay to go, hey, listen, I've got a lot of support, like take advantage of everything I can share because, I'm able to do it because, for me, Mike, are you kidding me? Like, my classes haven't changed since I've been at my school. I teach the same thing. I mean, differently every time, obviously, but very predictable, and hope it stays the same. I'll have a lot of support. I basically get to do kind of whatever I want, all of the things. So you're able to create things. You're able to present things. Like you said, your kids are healthy. Your parents are healthy. I think we bond over martyrdom sometimes, and we bond over misery, and we bond over having something like in common to complain about. I know I'm guilty of all of those. And so I think if, Marisol is killing it, which she is, but all the time, I can tell you for a fact, like if she's killing it, and I'm like, well, of course you are, you don't, and then fill in the blank. That's super unfair, like super unfair.
Super unfair. I think, yes, I think that's something that we need to do better. Like, we really need to do better to our own colleagues when they share, when they express their opinion, right? Like, when they express their opinion, like, what is the thing that we need to all think the same? Like, no, I mean, like, no, like, I don't give homework, but if Joe wants to give homework, good for him. Like, go ahead. I mean, like, oh, Joe, why do you give homework? You shouldn't get, like, I mean, we are kind of like, I don't know. I don't understand when we became these police officers of the language, of the career, of the curriculum, of everything. And some have the power to decide. Like, I think the conversations are great. Like, if we can say, okay, let's talk about homework, right? And let's talk about homework from, like, in a safe space. Like, why do you do homework? What is the purpose of your homework? Okay, seeking for understanding, like really trying to understand the reasons behind our policies, our procedures, our rituals, our things. And I feel like if we sit and we have this conversation, then we are gonna all enrich, instead of saying, like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. I mean, like, come on. I mean, like, really?
Mm-hmm. Well, who has time for that? I mean, like, at some point, like we've said before in other webinars, if Joe is, the first day of Spanish 3, and he's like, yo, Gustarme, Soy Day, Connecticut, you're like, oh, wowza, okay, whatever. Like, you just do what the rest of us do and discreetly look up who they had last year, in the thing later. We're like, who did he have? Oh my God, well, okay, that makes sense, or whatever. Or you just don't even care about it at all, because, like, we'll get there. I think we get really hung up on what we think we should be inheriting in terms of, again, accent, pronunciation, just knowledge in general. And it's like,
absolutely. And when that happened to you, like, I don't know how old I was when I started talking. I'm telling you late. I'm telling you late because language is not something that comes easy to me. My two boys, both of them spoke at a different moment in their life, and nobody failed, right? Like they ended up talking, like both of them. It's the same. I remember I was fighting with my son, with my husband, because he wanted to give pacifier to one of my kids because he just didn't stop crying unless you put the pacifier. And I was talking to my friend, and she said, like, I haven't seen anybody with pacifier in college, so if it makes your life easier, give it to him. And it's just the same. Like, when we said, okay, you need to be X, Y, and Z at specific moment in life. No, and we just need to, like, really get to see our students, get to know where they are, enrich them, amplify their voices, get them to be part of our class, go from an asset approach, like, let me see what you can do, we can do it better together, instead of, this is what you don't know, this is a disaster, look at your benchmark test, it's just a disaster, why are you here? Why are you in AP? You shouldn't be in AP. You shouldn't be in this class. This class is not for you. Right. What is the point?
Yep. In Kentucky, as we wrap up here, Kentucky has a great teacher and teacher leader, and he's now retired, but he reminds me really often, his name is Tom Welch, and he reminds me really often that learning is not linear. So he was a language teacher, and then an administrator, and he's incredible. And he's always like, even like, it's language is not learning, and learning language are not linear. They're like a constellation. And in constellations, we still see what we want to see. Like the Big Dipper and certain formations are not always in the same spot. We look for them, but we also see them where we want to see them. The way we make up rules, the way we make up the rules about, all those like tests and levels and whatever. We made the rules. We can break the rules. Like that's, absolutely. They're a social construct.
It was exactly like you were saying, like we were talking about, like, oh, I want to tell you about my weekend. No, because we're not using the past tense yet. This is level 1. We cannot get to talk about last weekend. we talk about next weekend because that's future, right? But not about last weekend because that's past tense. We don't do that. No, it doesn't come in the book. It comes with the level 2 book. We don't use it.
Right? Can't you wait? God, you're so impatient. But then we pretend like they're going to get super excited like we are. Oh, you just wait. Chapter 5 is going to be really good. And they're like,
oh my God.
They're like,
oh my God. We just need to get ready with our pen to say apologies letters. But Meredith, this was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Are you kidding?
Much for the invitation.
How can we get, I'm going to be super selfish here. How can we get your, you had some links on your slides and I've included them, but can we have any like access to the slides or any access?
Of course. I'll give you the PDF. I'll email you the PDF so you can upload it because I know that you have all the slides and all the goodies and everything. So I will upload it to you, and I hope that this was inspiration. I just, the only thing that I just hope not to is that teachers feel overwhelmed or we feel like we're not doing enough, because I think we all are doing enough. We are amazing. We're doing our best, and that's more than enough. And I just hope that I brought some points of reflections for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so thankful for you because because you and I, we've been very honest with each other over the last couple of years, whatever. And I'm always so appreciative that I feel like I can tell you like deep, dark. I know we've joked about lying on Zoom, but I legitimately lie on Zoom. I know you do this too. I am making up, I am answering my own. It is like television, one woman show. They have muted me an hour ago. They're all playing video games. It's just like really depressing at this point, but I have to laugh because I know I can tell you things, and I'm so appreciative for how honest you are as well, that we can just go, thank goodness I'm not alone. Thank goodness. I know for a fact you're not thinking, you better not be, you're not thinking in your head like, oh, Meredith, she must really be terrible. Because then you start feeling like a fraud. Like you start like telling, like if you're too honest, you're like, oh no, like she's going to think I'm a terrible teacher, and that, you know, we're all lying with the things we share. Like we've said, like you just share the highlight reel, you know, we just share the positive things. And it's like, if sometimes we worry if we're too honest, someone's going to go, oh, imposter, imposter. So
this is so refreshing for me, Meredith. Like this has been amazing. If something I have to say thank you for COVID was to connect with incredible teachers, like, you know, everybody that is here, you, my friends Berta, Cristina, Lisa, you know, all these great people that
yes,
are so real. Like we're a mess. Like it is a mess that is happening. We just sharing what is happening in our classes, the good, the bad, but the real with real students, with real success, right? Like with real great moments that you feel like, yes, I love this. With others that are not that good, because that is what teaching is. And I just feel like if we can be real, it will just empower other teachers to do the same, to share, because everyone, like every single teacher has a great talent. And remember, we're stealing. If we don't share that, we're stealing.
mm-hmm.
Because that belongs to the world. So everybody has a gift, a great strategy, a great idea, a great approach that has to be shared so we can get better. So don't steal from me, people. We need to keep sharing. So thank you, because Mary, I love what you have been doing. I love your work, and you know that I already told you that. That I just felt like very honored that you asked me and invite me here. Very honored to be sharing with you tomorrow. I don't know what is gonna happen.
My God, you guys, we're doing comedy tomorrow night at Scold. I know. Ooh. So hilarious. Hopefully, my God, what if it's okay? Well, we'll be there, so we'll be laughing. So I was gonna say, like, what if? I hope everybody has their cameras off. No, I'm kidding. So we can't see them. Like, mm. do they think they're funny?
Doing my class, but with a wine.
I know. Let's have a couple of, let me stop recording. No, let's have a couple of cocktails beforehand, and then we'll think we're hilarious. Like, woo, we're super fun. Yeah, no, Claudia, I'm so thankful for you. You know what, Cecilia, I don't think I can record the, let me see if they make me the co-host of the Zoom, and I'll see if I can record it, but I might not have those privileges. Yeah, so tomorrow night, Chela, I know you're coming. We've got all these different people, because everything, woo, we'll see you tomorrow night. Hopefully the virtual conference model has been so cool, because you can now go anywhere. And I know, yeah, and it's so nice, because it's like, here I am in wherever. It's like Wayne's World. Remember, they were like, here in Delaware, look, I'm in Delaware. Like they had like the screen behind them. That's how I feel like the virtual conferences are. And so it's really fun. So tomorrow night we're gonna talk about this last year.
I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited about that. So I don't know why I say yes. You know, I guess that's the same reason that I say yes to my husband. Yeah. So like those things that I do, and I never know why I say yes, but I have a good feeling, and that's how I say yes, and it ended up to be great. So I know it's gonna be great. But thank you for everybody. I just love it, and I hope that this was, you know,